Well, hey guys, welcome to the studio. Today, kind of a big one. The sound stage, the mythical creature. We chase it. The idea is to try to make it sound as if a song is happening in a space and we're watching it unfold in front of us. We're bringing in expert advice from Kevin McCarthy from City View Recording in Oregon. Kevin will be taking our questions from our Facebook group, Recording Tips, from members like you. So we're going to take a look at some of the basics, we're going to look at some approaches, and then we're going to look at some advanced techniques. Let's get to it. Let's look at some of the basics. If something is on my side, I'm going to hear that in one ear before I hear it in the other ear. Why? Well, the distance is shorter here than it is here. And that allows me to locate a sound if I'm out in the wild and a predator is coming to kill me, and I'm facing this way and the predator is coming from where you are. This ear hears it before this ear, and I will look right at it. Humans are actually pretty good at that. And so we trick our ears a little bit if we have two speakers or headphones. If something arrives at both ears at the exact same moment, we perceive that as being directly in front of us. And I wanted to point that out before we got started because we will be talking about something called left, center, right, or LCR. The idea is, am I perceiving something on the left or the center or the right? And it's not just the amount of time that it takes to reach one ear versus the other ear. It also has to do with volume. I will hear something on this side louder than this ear will hear it. And it will also have a different tone to it. I will hear something with more clarity if it's facing this ear than it is this ear. And the shape of our ears has a lot to do with how we perceive that clarity. If you think I'm making that up, well, let me just put a little bit of flesh in front of the source here. I wonder if I sound like I do this way versus this way versus this way. Your ears and all those ridges are doing that exact same thing. And this process gets its start with how I record a source. Am I recording it with a single microphone? Well, that's going to give me mono. And if I'm recording with two microphones, then I'm recording in stereo. And that makes a big difference with how I mix something going forward. And the simplest way we have to control any of this is with our pan control. If I pan it to one speaker or the other, you'll varyingly hear where that source came from. This is the basic form of how we are going to set up our soundstage. But there's a lot more to it than that, as we are going to find out from our expert, Kevin McCarthy. And Kevin has graciously joined us to answer the questions from our Facebook group, Recording Tips. This is a few shots of Kevin's studio. That's his massive Trident analog board. Ooh, very nice. That's his drum room. We're going to be talking a lot about the drums. And here's Kevin working on his rack, which includes Neve, Manley, a lot of boutique processors and effects.
The goal is to sound like you're in the room while I have either headphones on or a great set of speakers. So when we talk about, I'm talking mostly about the stereo field and where everything's resting in the sound field. LCR, let's just talk about it in the sense of two areas. One, anything that isn't dead center. Let's sans bass and sans vocals, okay? Let's talk about either keyboards, drums, or guitars. I want to feel like I'm in the room. If you know everything, you're wrong.
So let's have a question from our Facebook group from Orlando Drummond asked, with drum overhead mics, how wide do you pan them, and do you alter that if there are other room mics involved?
The answer is full left and right on overheads, because remember, the drum room is just a great bleed chamber where we're going to have to try to figure out how to make things be distinctive inside that stereo sound field. So we want to go full left and right. Now, if we pull in either room mics, which I use in front, and some people will use the front and then an overhead, maybe a 47 or a FET 47 over the top of the drums, a la what George Martin was doing with the Beatles and how they got that drum sound with very few mics. And if I'm adding those things, I'm still going to go hard left and right in almost every case.
Alex Patterson asks, if you're going to be panning drums around, do you do it from the drummer's perspective, left to right, or from the audience perspective?
Perspective. I want to be in front of the drums. Whatever in front of the drums is. I'm pointing to my drum room, which you can't see.
I'll put a picture up.
It's on the other side. It's on the other side of that giant screen. I want the drums to represent themselves in the mix, like I'm standing in front of the drums. The first tom, if you've got 3 toms, a kick, snare, the first tom is over here because that's where it is. The second tom is dead center. And the third tom, the floor tom in our scenario, is far left. And then we're going to take the overheads and spread them completely out. The room mic either in front, emphasizing the kick and the power of the drums, or overhead taking the top, a la George Martin and the Beatles and others, or maybe both. We want to keep those centered, but we want to represent the other sounds that create the stereo field nicely with the overheads and the LCR panning with the toms. Snares always in the middle. Don't put the snare over there. That's not where it is.
Michael Findley made an interesting statement. He said that stereo width is easy and stereo depth is hard. And we asked Kevin to react to that.
Okay, and here's how we look at that. I'm using a stereo enhancer. I'm using a field enhancer, and it comes down to parallels. We want all these things to be there, and then we want to add the sides to it and expand the sides. That means that we've got from left to right. We're standing in front of the orchestra. Imagine the thrill an orchestral conductor gets standing in that podium right there in the center, and all this stuff's coming at him. And if you think like that, you start applying it. So I want to have both of those ingredients. I want to be here looking at it, and I also want to have it coming from the sides so that I feel that I'm in an open space with this in this musical environment.
And I would like to actually chime in on this a little bit as well. When you're talking about the stereo field from left to right and panning, and as Kevin is saying, stereo enhancements and that type of thing. And Michael Finley is mentioning depth. And depth actually is time. You can use delays specifically on, say, higher frequencies. You can set things back. So I'm not only dealing with like equidistant orchestra left to right, but I could put, say, the brass a little bit farther away just by putting a slightly different ambient on it to trick my ears into thinking it's a little bit farther away. And Evan Langford from our group brought this up as well. He said, how do you do that? How do you locate something specifically? You want to hear something here, you want to hear something there.
Well, you're going to do a numerous amount of things to accomplish all that. I mean, one, you really, and again, I fight 45 degrees. I fight this paneling thing like this. I want them like this, and a representative, because it's how your brain perceives stereo. You got 2 ears giving you different information, different timing. Right. And that's how we understand where this predator is or this, food source is from our, inheriting and evolving as hearing creatures on the planet. If you want it to be staggered across the field and in less than LCR fashion. You might want to pick it up on instead of just taking a tambourine and putting it on a mic and doing this. Take the tambourine, put it on a mic, and put two microphones back away from you, okay, so that you have an LCR on the tambourine, and then you can adjust those back, those stereos, a little bit either way, and but what you're going to do by creating, we perceive distance from the sound source by time. And so by putting those mics back there and taking the tambourine from just, a 57 or whatever you're going to hit or whatever cardioid you're going to use, you're also adding those other elements which become part of your brain's perception of that sound field. So if you want those things to be in the background and kind of have a place out in the sky, you've got a multi-mic and multi-track.
Now, we had a lot more content than what you saw here. We kind of went through the basics. We kind of touched on some of the process. We can go deeper with this. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see more of this interview, and I'll make a second video with more advanced techniques. And guys, please click subscribe. We have a lot of viewers, and the more subscribers we have, the easier it is for the channel to lure more experts in to get their take on the kind of stuff that we're working on in our studios. So click the button. It's free. Thank you. And don't forget, please come visit us in our Facebook group, Recording Tips, where we have these discussions, and we're going to carry that discussion over into that group right now. And I had a lot of fun putting this video together. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Well, we got a lot of work to do. Let's get to it.